is when you recognize that this human wasn't born like this. This human was born an innocent, pure soul that through whatever failures of parenting, failures of life, has turned into this. That doesn't mean we shouldn't punish, of course, criminals by any means. But when you're forgiving an act, when someone is being nasty towards you, it's just because you're just like, you can see their own misery and you just feel bad for them that they're that miserable, because it must be pretty hard to live this kind of a miserable life. And that's to me, that's what means turn the other cheek, basically.
But you can easily see like how that would give rise to evil, because let's say that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna prey on the fact that you're gonna continue to forgive me and turn the
100%.
other cheek and all these different things. And so that's
But I
where
feel like there's a balance that Jesus teaches. Like he says turn the other cheek, but he also clearly stands up for himself, right?
right. And that's I think that's the difference, is that he's not permitting any physical violence of any sort. Um,
It's
yeah, I
very
can't help but
stoic, like it's very stoic. It's
well, I
such.
can't help but think about all the different. There were many forms of Christianity before the Bible was concluded. There were a lot of different people in the first century who believed differently about Jesus and the way he lived his
Well,
life
it's
and what his
understandable because stories are being told and different telephone game, like the different line is getting to different people. It's very understandable.
right. I mean, there are some who believe that Jesus was speaking directly against the God of Israel. There
That's
were
how
some
I see it.
there is a large group of people that were heavily persecuted and suppressed, first, second centuries, third century, um, and who were completely erased at some point, probably around fifth century, completely erased, but
Yeah.
then rediscovered in 1945. So, who preserved those writings? Like why are those preserved specifically? But it does give a very different picture of who Jesus was. And these are some of these writings are much older than the current copies of the Gospels in the New Testament that we have today, because a lot of that was finalized much later. Um,
Yeah. I mean, the
and
way
so,
I see those kind of things. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no. Well, yeah, I guess I just want to finish with like. So he's speaking directly against the God of Israel and basically saying that this is an almost a flawed God who thought he was the only most powerful, but failed to realize that there's something even greater than he. And I mean
Yeah.
that comes out, especially when you start looking at. That's why the history is important. That's why it's so important to go back in history and really see uh, when the writings were written and how they were written and how they've been
Altered.
altered. Yeah, that's a good word. Altered throughout time and throughout the years.
I mean, that's the thing. So this is why it makes no sense to just wholeheartedly to take anything at face value, right? Because, for example, if I am someone who wants to create a narrative of certain sort, like I really want to control a certain where the story goes, I can do this even now as a person for shits and giggles, and I will never know, of course, the result because I'll be long dead and gone. But imagine you write something, you write a whole new history or pretend to have been so and so, right? Like maybe I pretend to be random Donald Trump, and I write something as if I am Donald Trump, like my personal thoughts of, I don't know, Donald Trump, right? And I just write this thing.
It's, I was trying to do the noise cancellation because I think I need to have the noise cancellation off, because then that way it allows me to hear external sounds, and if they're getting loud or crazy, I can always just kind of like click my microphone on mute. So I was trying to switch that and
Oh,
accidentally
okay.
hung up the call by accident.
Oh, okay. What was I saying? I was saying
You were Donald
something
Trump.
about. Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's pretend I have some kind of a idea, let's pretend I'm Donald Trump. Actually, I am Donald Trump, and I want from 100 to 200 years from now some kind of a record of me to be found somewhere, and I can make myself whatever I want to be, right? Like I can write whatever that narrative I want to take, and I can have other friends of mine who existed in that time to do the same, and then we just dump it in a sea, or I don't know, bury it on the ground in Mar-a-Lago or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden 200 years from now, 300, 500, 600, whenever that building gets demolished and some excavation happens, all of a sudden these historic old records are found, but in reality it was planted with purpose. You know what I'm saying? So when I see the Dead Sea Scrolls and this and that, like people have done this for I mean, KGB has done this when they patiently would just dump something and then patiently wait for decades, even if it preceded their timeline, to then find it and then start to recreate, like to create a new type of history and course of history. So to me, it's just so easy.
No, I
I don't
like
believe
this
anything.
perspective because it's something that I have specifically thought about myself in meditation. Just like, well, how can you trust something that was uncovered? Because I thought the exact same thing. Like I could easily create something, bury it, and just wait. But what's interesting about something like the Dead Sea Scrolls is, well, I'll just take like the Book of Isaiah. I mean, even all the other books that are in there, it's very similar to what I'm about to say. But like the Book of Isaiah, it actually is more accurate. The Dead Sea Scrolls, Isaiah, is more accurate to older versions rather than like a new updated version. And so that's what leads me into thinking that, oh, okay, what I like about the discovery is that we can see what we've moved away from so much more clearly, rather than saying like, oh, okay, this was adjusted over time or this was adjusted over time. Now we're looking at a much older copy again, and we're able to compare it to today's copy, and I think that's very significant. But what's the most significant about that whole thing is that one is being suppressed and one is being given the front seat.
Promoted.
And so if you look at what's being suppressed, I think you can see why. You can see why certain things are suppressed. Like the worship
So
of Ashera, you
Shira,
know? Ashera. Ashera?
Ashira.
Ashera.
Is that in the Bible? I don't know that.
The only reference now in the Bible is that basically they were not allowed to worship Asherah anymore, the Israelites
Ah, okay.
specifically. Okay, so they were worshiping Asherah, which is technically was uh, Yahweh, could be Yahweh's counterpart, his feminine half, so to speak, um, but is also connected to another deity within the Canaanite pantheon, Asherah
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And actually in the original Israelite writings, Yahweh was the son of El.
Okay.
Okay, and then his wife was Asherah, basically, and then slowly became Yahweh became El, took on the qualities of El, and the qualities of Asherah kind of got forgotten and lost. But what the reference you find in the Bible is how they had erected some sort of
So that's
thing altar
actually
to her, and it was directly beside the altar of Yahweh. So it was in the same temple. They used to have altars for Asherah in the same temple as altars for Yahweh.
it's funny because normally I see things literally, but that one gave me a little bit of a, I guess, allegorical. What's the word? Perspective. Kind of like what you just described made me think of like how the son becomes the father. Like a child grows up to become kind of the father. But that also made me think something completely random.